Welcome back to Doctor Who Fights. Today we're looking at two Series 9 episodes, the Zygon two-parter versus the Bootstrap Paradox two-parter. Let's start with Under the Lake and Before the Flood. Under the Lake starts off as this base under siege. One of my favorite things about it is that it has this green color tint, color grading to it. Just like in Girl Who Died, there's this amazing shot where Clara is inside the TARDIS set, and in the same frame, Peter Capaldi is symmetrically doing something else outside of the setting. I absolutely love that. We need to bring shots like that back. Now, first I want to talk about what I didn't like about this episode. When it first came out, too, there's this scene where the Doctor is given these cue cards, I guess Clara gave it to him, about different responses, about how to interact in different situations. Even when that came out, that scene felt out of place to me. It's like the writers are deliberately been going in this direction all season, of the Doctor kind of being more socially awkward, not caring. It's like the writers want him to be like Sheldon Cooper. And so that is definitely a problem for me with the writing of this season, but Capaldi, you could arguably say, is on top form at times. The build-up for how the pacing and suspense is unfolding is done pretty well by the time we get to Before the Flood. The lines where the Doctor and Clara are talking about seeing the Doctor's ghost, and Clara is like, die with the next companion, don't die with me. Again, I never liked this scene. That scene is clearly only there to foreshadow what is eventually going to happen at the end of the season, foreshadowing the season arc. Other than that, it feels long. I still didn't like its placement here. And even though at times it is somewhat of a blatant Father's Day ripoff, they cross their own timelines 30 minutes in. The explanation for the Bootstrap Paradox, knowing what happens in the future to change the past, again, that's Doctor Who trying to be clever when it's just an alright, okay explanation. That scene where the deaf character has to run across the hallway and she's not with Clara and she figures out there's a ghost behind her, that scene unexpectedly had so much tension for me. That scene really had me in suspense. One little nitpick, they went all the way back to the 80s in this timeline. They went back to the 80s a couple of seasons ago with Cold War. They even went back to the 70s with Hyde. It's like, can you guys pick some different decades? And yeah, I was really hooked onto the story. Some of the mysteries and things placed in episode 1 came back in episode 2 in a satisfying way. I always liked the look and design of the Fisher King. That was done very well. And so the one thing that was very confusing to me about this episode is that when the Doctor decides when the flood is about to happen to hide himself in a chamber to reappear in the future, to me, did that mean that he had to wait or be frozen in time that long until the future, until his friends find him? But I guess the explanation is because with the Bootstrap Paradox, because he knew the future events of the list of people that the ghost was getting, because he knew that so that he could change the future, all these things were changing. So I guess him hiding in the chamber kind of happens instantaneously that he reappears back with his friends, apparently. And then let's move on to the Zygon invasion. 20 million Zygons are hiding in plain sight as humans, and a faction of them goes rogue, and basically they employ this device called the Osgood box, which promises to turn these Zygons inside out. But eventually it ends up doing nothing. So let's talk about what I didn't like. Firstly, Osgood. She is asked about 5 times throughout this two-parter whether she is human or whether she's Zygon, and she never answers the question, and it gets so annoying by the end. There's this one moment where she's like, I represent both. I'm part human, part Zygon. And Capaldi goes, like a hybrid. That line is clearly only there to set up the story arc, the season arc, and it feels so cringy even back then. Still didn't like it. I've seen some people say these episodes show Peter Capaldi at his top form as an actor, and I want to agree, but with writing like this, it's really hard to soften up to. But I will say that moment where Osgood asks him, so what's your real name? And he goes, Basil. Like, that moment, I remember, that took me by surprise. I liked that moment. He was probably most likely lying, because he never brings it up again. But yeah, before any Capaldi episodes used to air after he was announced as the Doctor, I feel like I used to really wish that he was the Doctor who revealed the Doctor's true name. I used to think a lot that John Smith would turn out to be his actual real name. Still better than the explanation we got in Twice Upon a Time. I kind of like that Jenna Coleman got to play more of a villain as a duplicate. Speaking of which, there are a lot of duplicates in Doctor Who, aren't there? But also Clara herself in both two-parters gets to make some independent decisions for herself, which is interesting to see. I do kind of wish they touched on her school teacher side a little bit more. Despite how cringy, like, setting up the hybrid or setting up what's gonna happen in Heaven Sent. And I hate to say, the 12th Doctor's speech really didn't hit for me this time around. This episode is clearly an allegory about immigration and terrorism, and it's very on the nose about that. That's what I didn't like about it to start with. Like that scene where one of the soldiers is about to shoot his own mother, the duplicate version. Like, that scene has no tension. I never found it emotionally resonating. It was so boring and so played out. Other movies, other directors would have done it better. At the End of the World, it was a way better Peter Harness story. So, which one do I like better? Both have made me a little bit softer, I guess, on Series 9. But it's a clear winner, even though it feels like a bit of a Father's Day ripoff. I genuinely enjoyed Under the Lake more than I did before. It set everything up, and some of the things that were in there come back in the next episode. Yeah, I had a good time watching it overall. I'm going to give that an 8 out of 10. Under the Lake Before the Flood wins this episode of Doctor Who Fights. So yeah, before wrapping up this video, I want to talk about some of the modern Doctor Who episodes that I've been re-watching over the weeks, over the months, on Fridays, on weekends. Some of the ones included Journey to the Center of the TARDIS, 8 out of 10. I enjoyed that episode when it came out. If you want to be nitpicky, maybe you could say that it could have explored the interior of the TARDIS rooms a little bit more, but it still did a lot of that. It still had to balance this character that thinks it's an android, a character that's trying to find a shred of decency in him, balance Clara, balance 11th Doctor. Yeah, for what it did, great episode, honestly. Hyde is also a great episode. Enjoyed both of those. And Season 7, I'm enjoying a little bit more than I did in previous years since it first came out. Then I watched some of Season 11, which I had not watched since it came out. Rewatching Women Who Fell to Earth. I remember a time when it came out, doing my best to try to enjoy it. Yeah, it's not trying to be the next Rose, or definitely not 11th Hour by any means. Might be just as good as Deep Breath. The more I think about Deep Breath, the more I realize, like, it's just okay. And then I watched Ghost Monument, and it was surprisingly good, okay? I guess I thought it was just okay when it came out, but I was surprised. I was happy with it. The pacing was decently fun, kind of like Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, which is also a Chibnall. The only problem I have with Ghost Monument, it feels like Yaz kind of disappears for like 5 to 30 minutes of this episode. Clearly Chibnall didn't know how to balance all 4+ characters, didn't really learn from that lesson in Season 11. And then I watched It Takes You Away. Good picturization, good cinematography. Other than the annoying allegory about bad parenting, I liked the different settings, like the parallel dimension and the explanation of like a conscious reality. And that scene where the Doctor's talking to a frog, that was unexpectedly like a good moment. That was a good monologue from Jodie Whittaker. And then I watched Can You Hear Me from Season 12. I had to watch this episode for a second time because the first time I watched it, I was kind of sleepy, so the events of the episode that happened, it kind of jumbled in with all the other Whittaker episodes that I had seen before, and didn't really remember it. So the criticism back in the day that Nightmare in Silver should have been a 2-parter, I definitely agree with people saying that Can You Hear Me should have been a 2-parter. I thought Can You Hear Me was great. I would give it a 9 out of 10. Because Nightmare in Silver is pretty solid, not bad, but one thing that I noticed while I last watched it just recently is that some of the action scenes, the build up to that, because it's also balanced with like what Clara's character is doing, what Eleven's character is doing with his duplicate, action sort of montage moments by the time we get to them don't feel that satisfying because I guess they didn't get as much time to breathe for us to feel the stakes of them. But that's okay, at least it goes for the sort of faster, fun pacing that an episode like Dinosaurs on a Spaceship goes for. And then episodes that I was thinking about but I didn't fully rewatch, just scenes of them. Day of the Doctor, man. Like, I used to rewatch that so many times over the years. I was just thinking about how the War Doctor was telling the 11th and 10th Doctor, like, why are you pointing your sonic screwdrivers like that? They're scientific instruments, not water pistols. And the 11th Doctor meeting the 10th Doctor, the fact that they were going for like a Pertwee meets Troughton vibe from the three Doctors, they absolutely nailed it. He's like, very proper skinny. Never seen it from the outside. It's like a special effect. Matchstick Man. Then they compare Sonic's kind of like dick sizes. Compensating. For what? Regeneration, it's a lottery. Oh, he's cool. I'm the Doctor and I'm cool. Oops, I'm wearing sand shoes. Like, all that stuff, incredible fan service. He makes out with the Zygon and his future self is judging him. Venom sacks in the tongue.